Yo guys, what's going on today? It's your boy Kavi. Today I'm going to be teaching y'all the music theory behind my gospel and soul samples. Now if you really understand theory, this video might not be for you, but if you're looking for some simple and effective chord progression, sound selection tips and stuff like that for making gospel and soul samples, this is definitely the video for you. Before I get into this, I just ask that you guys give me a subscribe and a like down below. When it comes to making these soul samples, it's really not that complicated. It really just comes down to a couple simple things. You need a good chord progression, good sound selection, and you need a nice melody to go over top of those things. So the first thing I'm going to do is show y'all a couple go-to chord progressions for these kind of samples. We're in Logic now, and I've just got this Arturia piano loaded up. So it sounds super simple right now, but trust me, once you add a bunch of elements to this, it can really fill out and make a good sample. The first thing that I do is I'm going to start with the C minor chord. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this actually an A flat major 7th chord just by putting the bass note on A flat right here. And now you see it's a major 7th. It's got major chord right here. And then you just add another note 3 spaces up. The next thing you're going to do is you're just going to go down 1 note on the root note right here. And then you're going to go up 2 spaces, 3 spaces, and then 2 spaces again. And now you've got an A flat major 7th going down to a G minor 7th. So this chord progression is really just 2 chords, but you can expand off of it pretty easily, and I'll show you how you can do that real quick. I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to copy it over, and then I'm just going to drop it down 2. And then for the last chord, I'm just going to paste it over again, and it'll resolve into this G minor 7th. Right now it sounds like this. So with that being said, I'm going to show you guys how you can take this progression and make it into either a soul loop or an R&B loop. And this brings me to my second point, which is sound selection, which is very important for deciding which genre you're going to end up making. So right here, I've got the same chord progression that I did earlier. I added some strings on top, which are just following the top notes of the chords with a couple transition notes in between. And I added a bass line, which is just following the bass line. And I added a little transition note right here. Now it sounds like a soul loop. But now I'm going to take that same exact chord progression and make it into kind of a Drake, Bryson Tiller, R&B kind of vibe, just by changing the sounds. I'm not doing anything to the notes. So I copied the exact bass line into a synth bass, and I copied the piano chords into a synth pad, and now it sounds like this. So as you can tell, the sound selection makes a huge difference in which direction you're going to go with the melody. For soul samples, I highly recommend starting with the piano, some violin or strings, some brass, trumpets, trombones, that kind of stuff, organs, electric pianos, and stuff like that. And if you're going for more of an ambient R&B feeling, you want to go with the pad, a synth bass, maybe a synth lead, just nice ambient sounds like that. You might also be able to throw a piano on those too. Let's get into the second chord progression. So that's one of my go-to progressions. I use it all the time for some Drake R&B or some soul vibes. I'm going to delete this pattern and show you guys how you can remake it. Alright, so the first thing I started out with was a C minor 7th chord, which is just a C minor chord. I'm going to copy it, paste it over, and then put it up 2 semitones. And then it's going to resolve to the last chord, which is going to go up here to D sharp major 7th. We're going to go up 3 spaces, 2 spaces, and then 3 spaces again. We're going to drag this out. All I do for the second part, just to kind of give it some variation, is I'm just going to copy this over, and I'm going to change the order of the chords. So instead of going up, it's going to go down the scale for the second half. So all I need to do is put this chord here and put this chord here, and now I'm just gonna drag this chord out. So yeah, that one can work for both soul and Drake R&B kind of loops. All right, the next chord progression might be the easiest, but might be the best one that never fails. It always works for these soul loops, and all it is an F minor chord to a C minor chord. So this is what the chord progression looks like. So as you can see, it's just an F minor chord down to a C minor chord. And then I have a little transition chord that just kind of helps resolve the pattern, which is a D sharp major. All right, this is what the last chord progression I've got for you guys today sounds like. And it's in C minor again, surprise. So I started with the C minor chord, skipped this note, and then I went down to a G sharp. After that chord, I just went up one note on the scale and made the chord out of that root note. And then I just repeated this C minor chord. And then I'm gonna copy the whole thing over. So this progression is more on the soulful side. And what really makes it that is just the rhythm. With R&B, you want really spaced out chords. And with the soul samples, I'm usually using simple chords, but I might add more rhythm into it, more groove, because that's what the record sounded like back then. All right, now that I've showed y'all some chord progressions, I'm gonna choose one of these progressions and go in and try to make a loop from scratch with it. But before that, I want y'all to check out my new Soul Tapes Volume 1 loop kit, which is insane. I've been hiring a bunch of vocalists, pianists, organ players, trumpet players, you name it, it's got it in here. It's all live instruments. My best soul and R&B loops to date. You can get it for 30% off with my code KXVI30 on loopstash.com. And I'm gonna go through and preview a couple of my favorite loops from this pack right now. Oh yeah, super fire. Had to plug myself real quick. If you guys are interested in that kit at all, just check it out in the description down below. But yeah, let's get back into making this loop. Cool transition. Alright, so the chord progression I ended up choosing is the first one, and I'm going to show you guys how to make a fire loop out of this and kind of expand on that simple idea. And what I'm going to do is replay it in MIDI so it feels more human. Alright, so it's off time, but instead of just quantizing everything, what I'm going to do is just make sure the first note is hitting on time. So now let's get into how you can expand this simple idea into a full, nice progression. The first thing you're going to do is kind of play around with some voicings. So I'm going to take these bass notes and pitch them down an octave and see what that sounds like. And I don't like how some of the notes are hitting just a little bit too hard, so I'm gonna go in and mess with the velocity of some of them. Now we got that, I'm gonna add some more variation though, and I'm also gonna quantize the bass notes because I just like when those are hitting on time. And so now we've got a little section at the end that sounds like this. I'm gonna mess around with some strings right now. This is a free plugin, BBC Symphony Orchestra. I'm gonna copy these chords and go into East-West and put some choirs down. And I don't like how high these choirs are hitting, so what I'm gonna do is try transposing around the notes, voicing them differently. Gonna add some reverb to this choir. This Teletone audio, this thing is sauce. And I'm gonna layer it with some electric piano just to thicken up the sound. I'm gonna add a bass now. You already know we gotta add some chimes now. This little technique I picked up recently, I'm gonna duplicate these East-West vocals, and on certain chords, I'm gonna layer these together. So it's layered on the last chord of every 8 bars, and then it is layered the whole rest of the sample. Another thing that really helps add variation is just kind of not having every element playing at the same time and taking it out in certain places. It just makes it feel more dynamic. It's telling more of a story. Next thing I'm gonna do is add some drums. I love using just crashes and rides and stuff like that just to kind of give it that soul sample feeling. Now we've got a really solid chord and kind of a aesthetic with the sound selection that we're going for, but we need a melody to make this stand out and not just be a simple chord progression. I'm just gonna put a pitch shifter down 1. All right, so I found a couple vocal chops that I like the sound of. So what I'm gonna do now is put them in the right key. I'm just gonna listen through these, kind of see which ones I want and piece it together from there. What I'm gonna gonna do is add some effects on these vocals, and I'm gonna go into the Arturia plugin again, Reverb Plate 140. So now I'm gonna try to add a little bit of in-between melodies in the actual music just to make it more interesting. And with these glockenspiel hits, you really want it to be like kind of out of time. I don't know, it adds to the vibe. So what I just did there is just added these little top notes on the Rhodes just to make it a little bit more dreamy. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want the finished loop, you can download that for free in the description. Don't forget to check out my new Soul Tapes loop kit, 30% off with the code KXVI30. Give me a like, a subscribe, share this with a friend. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.